because we have a hurricane to deal with right now. And right now, Nate is a Category 2 hurricane, just been upgraded. The President of the United States has tweeted out that our great team at Fema is prepared for Hurricane Nate. Everyone in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, it is en route to being a 2. Right now, it's at a 1, right? I got that right? All right, so I didn't want to mistake that. We've got FEMA Administrator Brock Long with us. Administrator, thank you for taking the time on a crazy news day. We've already heard of a number of refinery operations that could be curtailed because that's a neck of the woods where a number of them are. Not a great many, but what are you seeing? What's the latest?
Well, right now, I just don't want people to let their guard down on Hurricane Nate, and for many reasons. One, there's no such thing as a minor hurricane. And while it's only a Cat 1 right now, I think you have to also understand that it's moving at 22 miles an hour. So you have to add 22 miles an hour to the sustained winds that classify it as a Cat 1. Basically, what we're looking at are impacts from a Cat 2. And because of that forward speed, this system's going to impact the coast between Louisiana and some of the western panhandle counties in Florida. But because of the forward speed, it's going to maintain a lot of intensity far inland. So you're going to see an inland event move through Mississippi and Alabama as well. And so we've been working great communication with all governors. I've spoken to all the governors from Louisiana to Florida. We've already positioned incident management teams and commodities in place to be ready to go.
Sir, I know that the governor of Louisiana had already activated 1,300 National Guard troops. He declared a state of emergency. Similar one exists in New Orleans. But we were getting separate reports. I don't know what's true or not. Maybe you can help me here. That the pumping stations were not working, that there was a concern that they weren't prepared, what could be potential flooding waters. What's the real deal?
I assume you're talking about the pumping stations in the city of New Orleans?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously we've been tracking and working with. I spoke to Mayor to Mitch several days ago. I've also been in constant contact with Governor Edwards. For the most part, a majority of the pump capacity is working inside the city of New Orleans. It's not back up to 100%. But the good news with this storm is because of the forward speed, anytime you have a high forward speed, you have reduced amounts of rainfall. So that's the good news when it comes to the rainfall and the city of New Orleans' ability to pump water out. But the important message is citizens have to heed the warnings of local officials. If you're being asked to evacuate, please do so. And that window to do so is today because the elements are going to be arriving early evening and later tonight.
The fact that it is moving as swiftly as it is, sir, I mean, I'm wondering how do people get out of the way of that if they haven't already? You know what I mean? I mean, it's moving fast, should be making landfall, I'm told, and you know better, later tonight. What do you say?
So the bottom line is that the goal is always to get out of an area that is vulnerable to coastal storm surge, flood inundation, storm surge. If you can get out of a storm surge zone, and for this, anybody in a Cat 1, Cat 2 storm surge area should take heed and caution. You need to get out of those storm surge areas and travel a few miles outside of those areas into a facility that can withstand the winds. And in many cases, a lot of the local jurisdictions have established shelters that are wind rated to a certain category, and that's what we would ask you to do. You don't have to go hundreds of miles, and in many cases, based on where the track forecast is, you want to make sure that you evacuate to a safe location and not along the coast or not along the track of the hurricane inland.
How is FEMA doing? How are you doing with this constant pelting of serious storms? I mean, I know we're not out of this until, the end of next month here, but man, oh man, this is like nonstop.
I'm proud of my team. I'm proud of the federal partners. We've saved a lot of lives. We've saved a lot of lives, and we're helping a lot of Americans put their lives back together. I work with some of the most dedicated and resilient people across the federal government, and we'll continue to do what we've got to do to save lives and help people recover. Bottom line is that we're not taking any time off. We can't do it. We can't afford to. So we're going to keep pushing forward. We're having to call upon our friends and state emergency managers through mutual aid assistance to help us out and backfill some things. But we're pushing along, and we're going to get through this.
I'm sure you're working hard. You haven't had a day off, and God knows how long. And then the criticism started with Puerto Rico, and of course the difficulty of getting aid right away to Puerto Rico, given its location. I understand all that. But was that frustrating to you, especially the criticism that came up, more confusion from the San Juan mayor versus the governor of Puerto Rico? But it seemed to be initial confusion. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Neil, we always have to filter out the noise. And, in emergency management, we move as fast as the situation allows. And I have all the confidence in the world that we did that for Puerto Rico, as well as the Virgin Islands and all the states. We pushed hard. We pushed, it was a logistically challenging event, and that's not an excuse. We're never going to be able to move as fast as people want because, quite frankly, they've lost everything that they've worked for. They're frustrated.
Absolutely.
In Puerto Rico, if we could fix the power, if we could turn on the water magically, it would solve a large majority of the issues that we're facing. But I do know that as a result of the guys behind me, everybody in the federal government, working through the governors, working with local officials, that we've done a lot to sustain the situation, sustain and stabilize the situation in Puerto Rico, but I also know that we have a long way to go, and we're actively pushing every day to restore essential services and doing everything that we can. And I think that if you look at anytime you lose a life, it's devastating. You can't replace lives. But when it comes to a category, 2 major hurricane hits in Puerto Rico, the devastation that they've had, right now, the direct loss of life has been stopped in Puerto Rico. We're pushing commodities out. The water systems are coming back on. And for the most accurate information, we're pushing people to status.pr. Right there at status.pr, you can actually see the numbers of how retail industry is coming up, the power is slowly coming back on, or telecom is coming up and retailers are coming back up. And as that comes up, then our need to push commodities starts to be reduced.
Brock Long, thank you very, very much. I don't know when you get some rest or your group gets rest, but hopefully soon. But thank you again, sir. I appreciate it.